M.A. Sumandran, you have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chairman, for the opportunity to speak on this occasion. A sense of deja vu comes over me as I stand up. 10 years ago, on the 8th of September 2010, when the 18th Amendment to the Constitution was moved in this House, I spoke at length and expressed my dismay. But in that same Parliament, in the year 2015, April, the 19th Amendment was brought, and I remember saying that I did not expect the 18th Amendment to be dismantled by the very Parliament that enacted the 18th Amendment. But now we seem to have come a full circle and are trying to remove the 19th Amendment effectively to go back to the 18th Amendment. But thanks to the reforms that had taken root and the fact that the Supreme Court, in deliberating these matters, took a particular view that we are not actually going back to what the 18th Amendment was. Nevertheless, I am constrained to register my opposition to the passage of this bill, because this is in the wrong direction. Now, this is very important. Earlier in the morning, the Honorable Anurakumara Dissanayake also stated this, and I think it is good to repeat. Out of the 20 amendments that have come to this House to be made to the Constitution, there are just 2 amendments that had more than 200 members voting for it. The 17th Amendment was passed in this House with only 1 member abstaining. And the 19th Amendment is the other amendment that was passed in this House with only 1 member, the Honorable Sarath Weerasekara here, voting against it. And I should congratulate Honorable Sarath Weerasekara for a consistent stand at least, although I did not agree with you then and don't agree with you today, but at least you have been consistent. The others cut very sorry figures here today, having raised their hands to propositions that are diametrically opposite, in opposite directions. That's the vicissitudes of politics, they might say, but it's not honorable conduct. When the 17th Amendment and the 19th Amendment were passed, why was it that the whole House almost approved it? Why did that happen? It didn't happen for any other amendment, but for those 2. Because those had the total approval of our people that this country must remain a democratic country. That messy as it is, democracy is the way that we have chosen, and that's the way, that's the path we will trod. Democracy is messy. We know that. All of us know that. Discussion, deliberation takes time. Sometimes it's costly even. But that is democracy. That is people's rule. That's how you ensure that it is the people's will that eventually materializes. I vividly remember the discussions we had outside the chamber, inside the chamber, during the 19th Amendment debate, and the committee stage that went on almost till midnight, when the Honorable Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, then Minister of Justice, led us through all of those amendments. So many amendments were moved from the opposition side by Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena, by Honorable Vasudevan Anekar, by Honorable G.L. Piris, by Honorable Professor Tissa Vitarna, he might recall that. All got together, agreed, bar one, agreed and passed that amendment. I agree, the Honorable Minister of Justice quoted me yesterday saying that I had conceded that there were problems with the 19th Amendment. Yes, I agree, I have said that, and I am able to say it even today. There were snags, but those were brought about more because of the last-minute committee stage amendments that were forced in this House and due to certain changes that the Supreme Court required. The 19th Amendment was to be the first step in the process of abolition of executive presidency. It was in that direction. And this House had every right, indeed the duty, to proceed in that direction. Many speakers before me have already said this. From the mid-1990s, there has been a consensus in this country that executive presidency must be abolished. Madam Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, former president, won a mandate of the people to abolish executive presidency in 1994. The United National Party, which introduced the 1978 Constitution in their convention in 1996, passed a resolution to abolish executive presidency. When in August 2000, President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga brought a bill for the enactment of a new constitution, executive presidency was to be abolished. The UNP opposed it. Apparently, the stated reason was that the executive presidency was not being abolished immediately, that it was being retained for her then tenure of office. That was the reason stated. So there was absolute consensus, one might say, on that issue. And that is why President Maithripala Sirisena, when he contested the 2015 presidential election, made that his first promise to the country, that I will abolish executive presidency. Of course, there was an addendum that said, whatever that requires a referendum will be done after the general election. So, 19th Amendment was the first step in cutting down presidential powers. In doing that, it is true that two centers of power were created, and I have said even from that time onward that this can only be a temporary solution until we attain that objective. For a quarter of a century, the country had repeatedly granted a mandate to perform. Now, at the last presidential election, this country did not give President Gotabaya Rajapaksa the mandate to strengthen executive presidency or even to retain it. It was never articulated in that way. What was stated was that 19th Amendment is a problem, and we'll get rid of 19th Amendment. If the 19th Amendment is a problem, yes, those problems ought to have been identified and those ought to have been corrected. You don't have to go in reverse gear. You don't have to travel in the opposite direction to democracy, in the direction of autocracy. That's a wrong thing that is being done in this amendment. And that is why Our leader, Mr. Honorable Sambandhan, said yesterday, we made our decision, always made our decision on principles, and on principle, we are opposed to this. This takes the country in the opposite direction to people's rule, democratic rule. There are certain fundamental principles in democratic rule that one must observe. Separation of powers is one key element of that. And when you say separation of powers, the three powers, and they must have sufficient weightage. It mustn't be weighted towards one. And already the executive had all the powers. The 19th Amendment restored some of it to the Parliament and a lot of it to the judiciary. Now it's been drained back into the slot of the executive presidency. Subsidiarity is another principle. After the last general election in 2015, according to the promise made, this House was converted into a constitutional assembly. And we deliberated over a period of 3.5 years. Maybe that was a mistake that we took that long a time. But nevertheless, the exercise was to build consensus. And consensus was built by a lot of give and take, and we were subjected to severe criticism from our quarters, saying that we had given in a lot. But in order to achieve a constitution that all the people of this country can agree with, all had to give in somewhere. So without compromising on our fundamentals, we did give in, and we did arrive at a consensus with regard to devolution of power. With regard to abolition of executive presidency and the parliamentary election system, there were issues. But with regard to the principles of devolution of power, there was consensus. Even the UPFA representatives in the steering committee and all the subcommittees agreed to that. While I speak, Honorable Prasanna Ranatunga enters the chamber. He was part of the steering committee. He was a member of an ad hoc committee that was appointed, which was chaired by Honorable Susil Premajayant. With regard to the relationship between Parliament and provincial councils, they gave a good report. All of this were taken in together, and a draft constitution, a new constitution draft, was presented to this House on the 16th of January 2019. That's the direction in which we must proceed. His Excellency the President, when addressing Parliament on the 3rd of January this year, stated that this country needs a constitution. And he identified four matters, three of which, for lack of time, I'm not repeating all of those, three of which are the same as what we did when we sat together as a steering committee in drafting a new constitution. So that's the task before us. That's the direction in which we must proceed. This country has had many problems, but none as serious as the Tamil national problem. The country did not go to war for decades over any other problem. Now that problem ought to be resolved by means of an agreed constitution. All of us, I think, will agree with that proposition, that it must be a constitution that all the people must agree to. Somebody said constitution is a supreme law. Yes, it is a supreme law of the country, but it is more than a law. A constitution is a contract. It's a social contract. It's a compact by which all the people of this country agreed to live together. That is the terms on which we agreed to live as one country. Now, if there is no such consensus, if there is no such compact, then there is nothing to hold the country together. When speakers on the government side says, "Ekiya bhavaya tahawuru karanna kiya," all of us are agreed. The oneness, we agreed to live as one country. There is no question about that. We have stated that repeatedly. But it can't be on the terms of one of the communities. Majority you may be, And the fact that you are the majority in numbers will always have an impact. You will always have your say. But the agreement to live together as one country cannot be dictated to by just one community. It must be agreed to. And we are ready to agree with you. We are ready to give that agreement. But it must be agreed to on some basic principles. And those principles were agreed to. I ask, how can those who voted for the 19th Amendment now vote for this bill before you? Now that you are on the government side, perhaps you have the whip. But I'm asking the members in the opposition ranks. There are many rumored to be crossing over and voting. Why do you want to do that? You don't have a mandate from the people who voted for you to do that. What are you doing that for? What's the consideration on which you are contemplating this act of betrayal of the people who voted for you? Don't do this. When I spoke on the 18th Amendment, I was a little harsh with the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress. I remember asking the question why they were committing this grave sin, that too in the holy month of Ramadan, then September 2010. I'm forced to ask that question from that same political party members today. Their leader came to the Supreme Court and very clearly stated.
Honourable Member, you have 2 more minutes.
Thank you. And stated that he was opposing this as an atonement for the sin that they committed during the 18th Amendment. He didn't use the word sin, but for what they did during the 18th Amendment. But he used the word atonement. Atonement is for sin. Once you have come to realization, once you have said that that was wrong and we want to change it, now don't go back to that. I ask every single member of the opposition, stand up straight and defeat this bill. It's for generations to come of this country will hold you in good stead. Will look up to what you did today. There's one matter that I want to mention before I wind up, Honourable Deputy Chairman, and that's with regard to all that has been said about Professor Ratnajeevan Hool in this House. Various comments have been made that he went to court. There is a reported judgment, Karunatilaka versus Dayananda Dissanayaka. When 2 provincial council elections were postponed, Varuna Karunatilaka and another went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court gave a judgment. In that, they found fault with the then Commissioner of Elections, Dayananda Dissanayaka, for not coming to court. They passed strictures on him. They said if he had a doubt, he should have come to court. Now, what is it that Professor Hool is being blamed for? That 52-day affair. Totally illegal act by the President in dissolving Parliament. I'm not saying it. This country's Supreme Court, 7 judges have said it. No question whatever. Blatantly illegal act. And he says hold an election.
Honourable Member,
the commission,
your time is up. Please
a
wind
member
up.
of the Commission went to the Supreme Court to say, the Constitution says this, but the President has done something else. What do we do? He was duty-bound to go to court on that occasion. He was duty-bound because the Supreme Court on previous occasion has found fault with a Commissioner of Elections for not coming to court. And that is being made the subject of ridicule of Professor Hool, and I think I must put the record straight. Thank you very much.